Sons of Mogh is mid-season 4 and starts with a battle between Jadzia and Worf, Mochlith versus Batlith, an intellectual as well as physical exercise. It allows Worf to explain why having a small weapon can be better if you know how to use it well. Having a big one, he insists, creates overconfidence that can be one's downfall, and this is all really starting to sound like a veiled dick joke, so we should probably move on. After some sexual tension, Odo interrupts to say there's a drunk Klingon looking for Worf. So, could he come out here and sort this, please? Turns out it's Kurn, wielding a knife, but all he wants to do is greet his brother and ask a favor. Kill me. Admittedly, that's not the kind of favor you could ever pay back. After the titles, Kurn wakes up shrieking the next morning in Worf's quarters, but after the hangover cure, complains about the fall of their house.
I regret that by opposing Gowron I have brought disgrace to our family.
You regret? What's next, Worf? Do you want to apologize to me?
Funny how he was much less belligerent when he was shit-faced. Kurn is outraged that in one single act, Worf destroyed the house of Mogh, cost them everything, and didn't have the decency to share in the dishonor back on Kronos. So the only thing left for Kurn now is to undergo a ritual that will let him die with honor. And Worf has to decide. On the one hand, it would be against what Starfleet would want, but on the other hand, it would shut Kurn up. Meanwhile, in a runabout, Kira and O'Brien are hard at work.
Major!
Yes, what?
Where they have a strange encounter. Something in the middle of nothing is just blown up. Which admittedly is probably the best place for an inexplicable explosion, but it's still odd. Kira says the readings look like a cloaked ship exploded, and soon a Klingon ship decloaks and says it's engaged in military exercises, so piss off to somewhere else, and then locks weapons on them just to make clear whatever happened, they're incredibly grumpy over it. On a related topic, Dax is surprised that Worf hasn't shown up to spar, and Quark says, "Oh yeah, he came by all right and acted like far more of a dick than usual. He wanted some special incense, and we see why when the ritual is underway."
You have been wronged in this life. There is nothing left here for you. No honor, no future.
I believe this ritual is based on what political parties do when one of their politicians has to resign. Dax speaks to Odo, learns about Kurn being here, and quickly puts the pieces together on what's happening. Naturally, the two need to rush down there and stop him in the nick of time. Must be daylight savings time on the station. They arrive soon after and beam Kurn to sickbay, and before you can say doodly doodly doodly, Worf is standing before Sisko, the bloody knife on the desk, and a look on Sisko's face that says he has no time for Klingon shit today. When Dax tries to explain, Sisko dismisses it out of hand, and Dax has to finally step in and say, they understand, all right, murder is off the table, we're just going to have to think of something else, I guess. Not long after that, he's stuck dealing with O'Brien and Kira's news, and the mystery of what the hell the Klingons are doing just beyond Bajoran space. So he says to take the Defiant and scan the area, and tell the Klingons if they complain they're just doing military exercises. Oh, and keep Worf informed, but don't bring him on the Defiant. There's enough going on without him pulling some other unpredictable Klingon shenanigans. Worf goes to see Kurn. Bashir saved his life. And Kurn is not happy at finding himself in the infirmary and not in Tovokor. Unlikely to find any blood wine here, for one. When Worf protests that Dax and Odo interfered, he dismisses that. A true Klingon would have tried to fight them off rather than let the ritual be disrupted.
For a moment, in your quarters, during the ritual, you were Klingon.
Trek has often explored the conflict between Worf's view of himself as a Klingon and his Starfleet duties. But this might be the apex of that. The thing that was the most Klingon that he has ever done was a thing that has caused him so much grief, and in the end accomplished nothing. So Worf has to decide what's next for Kurn, and when Dax apologizes for interfering, asks for advice on what to do next. They decide the best thing might be joining Odo's security. A big advantage is the fact that Odo's not Starfleet. A big disadvantage is that Odo's not Starfleet.
I am indebted to you.
Yes, you are. And Mr. Worf, you'll find I'm a man who collects on his debts.
That went better than I thought. Ask me again, but in a little girl's voice. When Worf swings by to give a report, Odo gives him shit about the number of people Kurn killed on his first day, just to annoy him, but admits that Kurn is working out just fine. There's a nice moment where Kurn complains that he's uncomfortable in this Bajoran uniform, but in the end, what he means is that the outfit just doesn't fit him very well. I can imagine. Not to mention, it's so drab. It's like it was chosen by people who felt beige was too passionate for them. Meanwhile, the Defiant is checking out the area, wondering why the Klingons are being so coy here, especially with cloaked ships. Well, Kira responds to this asking if they need any help, but the Klingons have only one answer.
Completely normal phenomenon.
Finally, even the Klingons have to admit they need help for their wounded, and since the Defiant sickbay is a stack of bandages in a closet, they accept being towed to DS9 instead. They're not the only Klingons in the infirmary, though. Kurn was shot. 3 more visits here, and he gets the 6th one half off. Odo says Kurn let this happen, and if he's got a death wish, he's too dangerous to have on a security team. Kurn doesn't take his survival well, and he doesn't want to talk anymore. Just make a decision, Worf, so he can do whatever it is that he's told. Understand that for Kurn, this entire situation is like having yourself exiled to some hippie commune of hemp bag makers, and every 2 minutes someone asks if you need to have the talking stick. In the B-plot, Worf figures out what they've been dealing with, a cloaked mine. The Klingons have mines right now that are dormant until they receive a signal. This one must have gone off by accident. Or else someone else is really annoyed with their older brother and took more drastic steps. They figure this is probably preparation for a war with the Federation. Turn on their minefield and suddenly DS9, Bajor, and the wormhole are all cut off. The only way to deal with it is to get their coordinates, and the Klingon ship would have it, but it's a question of how to get on there and take them. Worf has an idea, and Kurn despises it, but Worf gets him to admit that Gowron is being foolish, underestimating the Federation, which is why he opposed breaking the treaty. Worf insists that what they're doing is to preserve the Empire by sparing it from a war that it will inevitably lose. So Kurn is on board, reluctantly, and Bashir disguises Worf with some scars to make him less recognizable, along with some tricks to spoof DNA tests to seem like a member of the crew. Alrighty, time to Ocean's 11 this shit. Kurn is invaluable on this mission, first because he knows all the security tricks being used, including databases of false information that they need to get past in order to find the real location of the mines. But they get interrupted, and Worf bluffs his way through it. Or when you're a Klingon, there's always the option to just shoot the guy. Kurn shows the lieutenant wasn't buying Worf's story and was about to kill him, so Kurn had no choice.
He was a warrior doing his duty, defending the Empire, and I killed him. My dishonor was complete.
It's nice to knock something off the to-do list. The mission is a success, though. The mines can be dealt with, but Worf is upset over what happened. I mean, not the death, the fact that he didn't see it coming. It makes him realize he no longer fits in on his homeworld. He can't ever return and reclaim everything that he should have. All he has left now is his Starfleet life, and he's prepared to accept that. But Kurn has even less than that. He's got no life now, just a sense of dishonor and hopelessness. So Dax suggests killing him without killing him. Don't bother chasing that dream. We've all been there. It's the diet chocolate of murder. It just isn't satisfying. The Defiant arrives outside the minefield, and Kira sends a message that they're destroying the mines. The Klingons don't answer, so they destroy one mine, just as a demonstration. Well, no one moves, so they blow up a whole bunch more, and now all of a sudden those BOPs are a-running. Back on the station, Kurn has been falling back on what works. Get drunk and grab a weapon. He laments that their beliefs don't allow for suicide, but there's one thing that he laments even more.
That we weren't raised together. In the On Earth, it wouldn't have mattered. But the sons of Mogh should have never been separated.
The Parent Trap, Klingon edition. But seriously, it was a nice moment by Kurn, that beneath all of his anger he has unspoken affection for his brother. For all of the reasons that he might have to resent Worf, he will never do more than voice his disappointment in him. In fact, the last thing he says before passing out is that Worf, in his way, is honorable. This leads to an issue that I'm surprised is not more controversial. Worf takes the unconscious Kurn to Bashir with the instructions to change his DNA, alter his face, and remove the memories related to his identity, so that Kurn can be reborn as someone else, someone with a sense of honor again. Much like in Prophet and Lace, Bashir's medical services exist to service the plot without consideration of character. He doesn't debate whether this is an ethical choice or not for a doctor to make, to wipe away a man's entire identity without his direct consent. Kurn has previously stated that as the elder brother, whatever Worf wants, Kurn will do. But does it extend to this? Maybe I've not been in the right corners of Trekdom, but this seems like it should be more controversial. But don't misunderstand, I'm not saying that I condemn this decision. I'm only saying I wonder why people aren't debating it more. Kurn wakes up, a new man there claiming to be his father, that he is suffering amnesia thanks to a plasma discharge. When questioned by Kurn, Worf says that he has no family. Oh, his parents back on Earth are going to be disappointed to hear that. Post-episode follow-up. Annoying character goes to Gowron for bringing us to this sad end. Bastard. This episode gets a stamp of always awesome Tony Todd for his appearance as Kurn. All scores are relative to their series. Final score for Sons of Mogh is 7 out of 10. The B-plot is so overshadowed by the A-plot it might explain the crickets coming out. Dorn and Todd have great chemistry, making it all the more tragic that this has to be the end for Worf and Kurn. And in light of that, there's nothing else that can possibly be added.
All hail the Overlord! All hail the Overlord!
Tell me, Worf, does Starfleet ever make mistakes, even in their furniture?